Good afternoon, this is Rascal and Crow Farm, Claudine here. I'm just going to show you a quick video on how to tap your tomatoes and why we tap them. So let's just get started here. I am grabbing my little tapper. All I use is just a little stick. So I'm using this stick right here. It's kind of a long one so I can get to the back. Just a tiny little 3/4 inch stick. So what you want to do is you want to tap just like that the stake that your tomatoes are tied on. And if I go back this way, you'll see how nice and tall that tomato plant is. So by tapping it, the stake, you can see all the flowers shaking on it, and you go through each one. One's in the back as well. And you do that, shakes the whole plant, and you want to also get inside as well. You want to get in there and just kind of, get the plant lower. Some of these looser leaves, as it were, in here, you want to get those. You want to tap all around. And as you can see, there's some right here. You want to tap that. Just like that. So it shakes the flowers, as you can see. And so you want to do that to each one, and I do the stakes first, both ways, and then I go also in between the plant. I kind of shake the plant as well. In between, there's looser branches. Okay, so you just go through all your tomatoes and you keep just tapping everything. You'll see how nice that. Now the idea is that when you tap, you are going to see your little flower right here. And when the flowers are down like that, they're ready to pollinate, okay? And I don't know if you can see here. Let me see if I can get a better, there we go. A little bit better look there. If you look at the flower there, there's that little darker green tip there. A little hard to see on this camera. There's a little dark green tip there. That is the female part of the plant. Okay, so the idea is that this little fat part inside of the flower, the pollen's inside that, and that's the male part of the flower. It drops down, when you shake it, it drops down the pollen from the male part, the fat part, down through to the tip, to the female part, where it's that darker green, as you can see at the tip of that flower. So when it's down like this, the flower, that flower is ready to pollinate. So, and so you will see a beautiful pollination happening. So by shaking it like that, right, by shaking it, then that pollen will come down to that tip to fertilize that flower. So that's the idea. Now, if you do not tap your tomatoes, what happens is you'll only have maybe a 30 to 40% chance of pollination. Now if you tap it with the tapper, with your little piece of wood, a magazine, something light that you don't damage the plant, and you want to be careful when you hit these with the wood. You don't want to, they can mar the stem of the branch of the plant. So be very careful. These are tied to the main stake. So once you do this, it'll shake everything. However, you will have some strays growing that you haven't tied up yet, like this one here hasn't been tied up yet. It's tied up a little lower, so I have to retie. And this has only been a week since I've thinned them, and you can see they're already getting bushy again. And I have to go through them again and tie them up higher. And these are indeterminates, of course, our heirlooms here. So our heirlooms grow 8 to 10 feet tall. This is about a 9-foot tall greenhouse. So it'll be growing inside there up to the ceiling. So they're at about 5 feet right now, and so in another couple of weeks they'll be quite tall, about 7 feet. So the indeterminates being how they grow, you'll have to keep tying them as they grow. And now you've got to also remember that from stage of flower to actual tomatoes will be 5 weeks. So you might have some tomatoes, yeah. you got to remember how long your season is when you're going to harvest, roughly. So that's already a couple of weeks, and another maybe couple of weeks, maybe a week and a half to a couple of weeks big already. That's going to be a big beefsteak. So you will remember, please, that your flour to a tomato that's going to be harvested will be 5 weeks. So you'll need that. You'll need to remember that, and remember how many weeks you have until the weather starts to change for harvest. So I like to allow, I know that I've got now about 5 weeks or so, 5.5 weeks. So I'm hoping that these ones will have the tomatoes. And so when I harvest that, these tomatoes will be ready as well. So I like to give it, I know I usually harvest mid-September, around 11th or 12th of September I harvest. So I know I've got me about 5.5 weeks left. So hopefully these will be nice and done and ready and pollinated. And those ones will be ripening, which is a good thing. So you don't want all your tomatoes, obviously you're not going to get all your tomatoes ripening at the same time, thank goodness, or else you'd be in trouble. So that's what you have to keep in mind. 5 weeks from flower is your tomato would be ready. And so when you have your flowers at the top here, and some of them will be really small, you know, that, I mean, they're not even, right, they're that top. Chances are they're not going to make. So if you have a flowering branch like this, that the flower isn't even there, you know that that's not going to make it. I mean, you can see the little buds. I don't know if you can see them very well, but there's little buds here, and they're green and they're tiny, and they're not going to make. Look at that. That's not going to make in 5.5 weeks. These ones that are blooming will. So what you want to do is you want to cap off these tomatoes, because there's no sense in growing and putting the energy into the ones that will not make. You just nip it there and allow the ones that already have flowers to make, so that the energy doesn't get displaced and put into this sucker here that's not going to make into a flower. So that's what you've got to go through your plant and see as it grows, and to help the ones that are already there coming along nicely. And so that's pretty well all she wrote. Thank you for joining us for the tapping. I can't remember if I mentioned, when you tap you have a 70% pollination rate. So that's why you want to tap. And I think I've forgotten to mention that. So 30 to 40% if you don't tap rate of tomatoes, 70% of pollination if you do tap. So it goes up very, very high in pollination in your fruitage. So your yields will be much more when you tap. So thank you for joining us here at Rascal and Crow Farm. I hope you enjoyed our little segment here. And we will be continuing on with our season growing and thinning out and tying until in another 5 weeks or so. And these tomatoes have been thinned now. And so the front ones will continue to tie. And we will see you next video. Thank you for joining us. Bye for now.